Today we're going to be talking about the full medical system in Escape from Tarkov. We're going to be talking about heals, breaks, bleeds, pain, and surgery. Let's talk about it. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Expo and Hideout. My name is Ghost. If you guys have never been here before, I'm super excited you guys are here. We just posted 3 Tarkov videos last week, so if you haven't checked those out, I encourage you to do so. Today we're getting into the full medical system, and the reason why I wanted to make this video is because this was one of the most daunting things I encountered when I first started playing Tarkov. And even up into recently, I'm thinking like, what does this exactly do? Like, I know what I feel like it does. I'm still using all the different meds, but I wanted to break it down, not just for you guys, but for myself as well, so I can get this ingrained in me, why I would choose one over the other, and what everything does, what everything costs, and it will help you decide on what you want to either make in your hideout, or what you want to buy from therapist, or what you want to keep when you're looting. So like, should I keep a car over a Salewa, or should I keep 2 Ifaks over a Salewa, or whatever the case is. I want to jump right into the video, not do a super long intro. Just so you guys know, I do stream on Twitch Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, 5 p.m. PST. I'd love to see you guys there if you guys want to run some raids or talk about this stuff live. And also, I would encourage you to join the Discord just because there's a lot of people in there. Tarkov community is growing, and then you don't have to solo raid anymore. But without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, so we're getting right into the guide. I apologize for my stash. I didn't have enough room to kind of like make it so that these aren't all together, but they are. So we have our heals right here. We have our bleeds, our breaks, our pain, and our surgery. See, I tried to make a little bit of room in my stash right here. So we're going to talk about these. What I want to talk about first, though, is I wanted to go ahead and talk about, first of all, where you can find this health. It's at the very top of the tab. You can do this in game by hitting tab as well, and it's going to be very useful. And then also learning what this stuff actually means, because in the very beginning you're kind of like, well, what is all this? So let's go ahead and make the camera disappear for a second and get into the body so you guys understand how the hit points work. So like I said, there isn't any of the radiation or toxication available right now, so we're going to ignore those numbers. We have down here the hydration. We have your energy, which is if you're low on food, because food equals energy. That's going to be this lightning bolt number. Then we have your body's temperature and heart rate. And then up here, we have your head at 35, thorax at 80, and then the rest of your body parts. Every single time that your body part gets hit, you're going to see different effects happen on each part. All of these together equal 435 down here. So like if you get a broken arm, it's going to have a little fracture mark here. If you receive blood loss in your thorax, it's going to have a little blood loss here. Contusion will be up by your head, and so forth. And then you're going to treat these accordingly. You can also pull meds to these areas, which I can't right now because they're not damaged. But if you're in the middle of a raid, you can pull a bandage to get the blood loss here. You can pull a splint to get your left broken leg here. You can pull this if you want to heal a specific part of your body, because if you just press heal on one of these keybinds, which you can keybind everything to your pockets and rigs, like we said in the last video, but if you were to just press it, it's going to hit the largest deficit, but you might want your right leg fixed over your left arm, for instance. So you can just choose that, or you can top off different things by choosing what you want to top off first, so you have the actual priority. Okay, so I was editing the video and I want to add something real quick to this part. I want to let you guys know that the hydration number and the energy number are very important, especially as a new player. I know sometimes we kind of brush it off and we don't eat and drink in between raids and we just kind of go in nonchalantly. This will kill you. Lack of hydration and lack of energy can kill you just as easily as a player. So just make sure that you pay attention to those 2 numbers. So let's get right into the heals. The very first one we're going to talk about is the A12. So the A12, you've probably heard the slang term, which is cheese. A lot of people call it cheese. It's not actual cheese. It just looks like a little slice of cheese. That's why people call it that. And so it's going to have 100 HP. This is where you can see what the HPs are for the total heals that they will essentially provide. And then when you double click on it, it's going to tell you its use time, which some of these are a little bit longer because you have to factor in pulling it out and putting it away as well. So if you're taking the full amount of time that it's going to take from when you have your gun to when you drop your gun, use the item, and pull your gun back up to be like fight ready, it's going to be longer than 2 seconds. These are going to be longer than 3 seconds. It's going to be longer than 5 seconds. You know what I'm saying? So this is purely heals. These are good, especially in the beginning, because they do heal a total of 50 HP. They take up 1 slot. They're very cheap. You can craft 3 at a time in the hideout. So it's a good, simple heal. Now, the problem with the cheese is, now that I've told you it heals for a total of 50 HP, and I'm going to go over the basics of how to understand the heals. And then once we start learning the basics, I'm going to go through all of the heals a lot more quickly. I don't want you to think that I'm going to spend a ton of time on each one. Anyways, now we can see the body. We talked about the different HPs for the body. This heals a total of 50, right? The head is the only thing that we can see that it can heal completely if it was damaged. Obviously, though, if you have a blacked out head, it's going to kill you. It's a headshot. But it's the only thing that can really heal. So these are all going to take 2 times to fully heal back to recovery. And that's how you're going to factor in how these things work. Now we're going to go to the second one. It's pretty self-explanatory for the cheese. We're going to go to the car. The car is good. It's a 2 slot and it only has 220 HP. So you don't get as much value as a Salewa, but it's also a lot cheaper. So it could sometimes be a third of the price. So you have to factor that in as well. When we look at the car is going to heal for a total of 70 HP. So it's going to heal all these parts except for the thorax, right? It's going to heal everything, including the stomach, for 70 HP. So one of the main things we're going to need to factor in when we're talking about heals and understanding how they work is there's different ones that do different things. So if it heals a fracture, if you bandage a bleed, it's going to cost HP from that heal. So for instance, this is 220 HP, but you don't necessarily get all of that towards health if you have a bleed and you use this on that limb. So it says right here, it stops blood loss at the cost of 40 HP, which means if it heals for 70 HP and you heal a bleeding limb, that's going to cost 40. So now you're only getting 30 heals. Does that make sense? And so we have to take that into account, which is a good chunk of this, being that if you're using it for multiple bleeds. I definitely wouldn't recommend using a car for bleeds. Just a heads up, because the cost is so high, and that's a 2 slot. Then we have the Ifak, which is going to be the same thing. This one costs 30 HP to heal, to bandage a wound. It has 300 total HP, so it's really good. Now, the best thing about the Ifak, which is probably one of the strongest heals in the game, actually, it is one of the strongest heals in the game, is the fact that it's a 1 slot. Being that this is a 1 slot and you could stick it in your pocket or take up a lot less space, I mean, you can fit 2 of these where a car's at, and they're 300 HP. So you have 600 HP that could also deal with bandages as well. It's very, very strong. The thing about the Ifak, though, is they're really expensive. So if you get one on a body or you're not crafting in your hideout, definitely hang on to them. I wouldn't recommend in the beginning putting them out in the open. I would probably keep them in your gamma. Like, for instance, I have one right here in my gamma, just because you can go through them pretty quickly if you have these unexpected deaths. Whereas if you have a cheese and a regular bandage, it's not really a big deal if you lose it, because they're cheap and you can craft them for really cheap. And if you lose them, it's whatever. Green smoothie is life. So we have the Ifak that will heal for a total of 70 HP as well. Just like the car, costs less to bandage the bleed and has more HP. So it's going to be a better bet, but it also costs about twice as much as the car, depending on a little bit of fluctuation in the market. So next we have the Salewa, which is probably the best heal you can get. It has 400 HP. It does fit in a 2 slot, but it's still most of the time cheaper than an Ifak. And really what you're paying for with the Ifak is that 1 slot. It's kind of huge that it's in 1 slot. This costs 30 HP, so it's the same as the Ifak, but you have 100 more HP for heals. And it's the same use time, about 3 seconds for this, the Ifak, and the car. They're all relatively the same. And then as you begin to craft these more in the hideout when you level up, or you start making more money, you can definitely run these. Like, I would put mine right here instead of the car, and probably keybind that to whatever you are comfortable keybinding that, and use that in between your fights. Next, we have something that is kind of controversial. There's people who really like the Grizzly. I don't like the Grizzly, and I'm going to tell you why. So the Grizzly, to me, this is my personal opinion, I think it's a waste. The reason why is because even though it's 1800 HP, It can stop blood loss. It can remove a fracture. So it's useful in that sense, but it takes way too long to use, and you have to hide. So you have to hide to use it, and it takes up 4 slots. So let's talk about this real quick, how Tarkov works. The way Tarkov works is you want to get as much value as possible per square. So when you're looting in your backpack, per square, I want to find the most money that I can get per square. That's how you know like what to loot. Same thing when it comes to heals. I don't want to bring in I don't want to take up a 2x2 for just my heals. Not only that, but I definitely don't want to put it in my gamma because I'm not going to be able to put as much other stuff. So if I have dog tags, if I have a sick case, if I have Serb 12, key tool, if I want to put in a Vaseline or a golden star, depending on what I want to keep in here, you want to keep in your gamma what you don't want to lose. Like at all times you put in here what you know for sure you're going to leave the raid with. I don't want 4 spots taken up by a Grizzly. That is going to be my main heal source. So to me, this doesn't provide enough value per square for me to take this because I could put 2 Salewas, I could put 4 Ifaks in the same amount of space. So let's talk about it either way though. That's just my own opinion on the Grizzly. The Grizzly is 1800 HP, so it's a lot of heals. It's going to stop blood loss at 30 HP, and it's going to remove a fracture for 50 HP. Now, it also though removes contusion. So contusion is when you get shot in the head but have a helmet on and it doesn't kill you. It's going to cause you to be like a little bit of woozy, and that's what this will definitely cure as well. You'll have the little swirling symbol, and that's what's going to be the contusion. The only way that I can justify using a Grizzly personally is keeping it in my stash, using it in my stash, and instead of paying it's like every time you get out of a raid, you have an opportunity to pay a certain amount to heal your body completely. If you don't want to pay that amount and you want to save some money, you can come into your stash and then use the Grizzly to fully heal you up, and you could use it in that way. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend using Grizzlies. If you find it, I would just probably sell it or use it post raid. So I really didn't want this to be like a bash Grizzly fest, but the other thing that I want to say is you're going to notice as you play the game more that a lot of this game is healing in the midst of gunfights. And the Grizzly, not only does it take a long time to heal, which is one of the main reasons, but it takes up a lot of slots as well. For instance, if you're fighting, right, and you guys are pushing up around a corner and you take fire, when you go around that corner, you're going to reload your mag and you're going to heal right away. So I'm going to be healing, then I'm going to come back around the corner and re-engage. But if somebody is pushing me or they're trying to re-engage around the corner that I'm trying to heal, it's going to be very hard for me to try to heal myself with a Grizzly kit versus a Salewa or an Ifak. So that's going to put priority on those heals over this heal. This is more of like I would need to go hide to heal, which makes it not ideal. Even though it gives you a lot of heals, it's not ideal in the middle of gunfights, which happens very often is when you're going to be healing. You're laying down prone, trying to hurry up and heal before you engage again, around a corner, healing before you engage again. So just keep that in mind. Next, we're going to talk about bleeds. So for bleeds, we have 2 options if you're not using bleeds from the other ones we just talked about in heals. We have the bandage, which is your most common 1 slot item with 1 HP. You get 1 use out of this. It's a 2-second use time. It's fairly fast. You can bandage really quickly. I like to use these because they're very cheap. I find them often, and sometimes it's easy just to quickly heal that bleed and keep moving before you do like a full heal. So it's totally up to you what you feel like in that situation. Then you have the army bandage, which is another 1 slot item. This one has 2 HP. That's really the only difference. It takes the same amount of time. I know some people say that army bandages are used faster. They're really not. It's identical in the time. The use time is still 2 seconds for you to use this, so you could use that as well. Next, let's get into breaks very quickly. We have the immobilizing splint, which is very useful. This is a single-use item. The use time is 5 seconds. So when it comes to the splints, this is where you're going to have a little bit of a difference. You could run this in your 1 slot and put it in your pocket or whatever else and use it like I have right here. Or you can run the Alu splint, which is a 5-use splint, a little bit more expensive, but it's quicker. So if you need to handle that break in your leg right away, you need to handle that break in your arm right away, and a break happens, it could actually happen almost anytime your extremities get shot, but it doesn't always happen. Does that make sense? And so you can use this. This is a 3-second use, so it's almost half the amount of time to use it. Has 5 uses, more expensive. I'd probably keep this like I have it in your Gamma, or if you're balling, just stick it up in your rig and then use it that way, and that's gonna handle your breaks. Now let's go ahead and get into pain. Your first painkiller that you're gonna have is the one that just says painkillers, and it's a 4-use painkiller with a use time of 3 seconds. Now, what you have to pay attention to is this is gonna cost you 7 hydration. So there's a thing in Tarkov called pre-medding. And what happens is painkillers, people will pop them before they think they're going to get into a fight. That way, if they get their arms broken, if they experience blood loss, any of that stuff, the painkiller will kind of help you like muscle your way through the pain and still be able to fight. The reason why you want to use painkillers is because when you have a blacked out arm, if you have a fractured arm, if you're experiencing blood loss, it's going to affect your body in a way like, for instance, you'll be limping if your leg is broken, which can slow you down by 50%. But if you pop a painkiller, you can run. You're still going to take the damage from running on a broken leg, but you're going to be able to do it because you have popped a painkiller. If you get an arm broken, your arms start to shake a little bit when you're trying to aim down sight. So every time you ADS, you'll see your line of sight going like that. Now, in the midst of that, you're going to want to take a painkiller and your arms will be more steady. They'll be more stable for that shot. And so there's different reasons why, but it's going to cost you hydration. So you don't want to be pre-medding your whole match unless you're bringing something to drink, because you will down your hydration very, very quickly. The duration of these painkillers is 170 seconds, so roughly 3 minutes of time every single time you pop them, and you'll have a little notification on the top left of your screen showing when that effect is on and when it goes off. Then we're going to go to ibuprofen. So ibuprofen comes in a bottle with 12 uses. The use time is 5 seconds. The hydration is a little bit less at -5. Now, the good thing about ibuprofen versus painkillers, if you're trying to decide what you're going to use and maybe keep this in your Gamma since it has 12 uses, is it removes contusion. So when you get that cloudiness in your head from getting shot in the head and surviving, it's going to remove that. It's also going to last 8.5 minutes, 500 seconds. So it lasts 3 times almost as long as a painkiller. So it's very, very useful, more expensive because of what it's providing, but it's very, very useful. Then we're going to go into Augmentin, which looks almost exactly the same as your ibuprofen, but there is a big difference because this is used to treat bacterial infections and remove toxication, which isn't in the game yet. So in my opinion, Augmentin is pretty much pointless right now. There's no reason why you should run this. It costs 5 seconds to use, just like ibuprofen. The duration is 300 seconds less than ibuprofen, and it's removing toxication, which isn't in the game yet. So what I would do is recommend 2 things. You either sell it or use it to craft pile of meds in the in your hideout. I'm sure there's other things you could probably craft with it, but that's what I use it for. I just save them and I craft pile of meds, and I use pile of meds to craft other things. So, but you can also sell them for, I think right now in the flea, they're probably like between 20 and 23,000 rubles. So you can choose that route as well. Then we have Morphine, which is going to remove pain for 380 seconds with a 2-second use time. Now, Morphine is going to give you energy, but take hydration. So this is kind of like hit or miss. Morphine is more for in the midst of being in the heat of the fight and you want to pop something very quickly and continue to fight. So even though it's only 1 second faster, the morphine versus the painkiller, not only does it last twice as long, but this is going to remove contusion as well as we're comparing it. This takes away hydration. This takes a little bit more, but it also gives you energy. So this is going to be when you're in the middle of fighting places like resort and dorms and it's just very intense and you need to pop something very quickly and it's instant. That's where you're going to use morphine. You're also going to want to save morphine if you're not using them for the in-raid ones, because I think you need like 9 or something for quests. So you will need them for quests as well, but they're very, very useful and they're really not that expensive. I think you could buy them on Flea right now for like 8 to 10,000. Sometimes they're more, but that's usually about what they are right now. So Golden Star, you'll see a lot of guys running Golden Star. This is like the all-around best thing to essentially run. Now look at all these things that it does. When we look at it, it does have a high use time. So make sure you're not trying to like quickly use Golden Star. 7 seconds is the use time. It right away gives you 4 energy, which is awesome, especially for guys who aren't wanting to carry like food and drink. it's going to give you the energy recovery and the hydration recovery. So that by itself is huge. Then it even ups it by 100 seconds for removing pain. So like, we're not talking about intoxication or radiation. I don't know if this is going to stay in the game the same way. If it does, it's going to be so OP. But for 600 seconds, so for 10 minutes, you are using this painkiller, plus getting hydration, plus getting energy. So Golden Star is your all-around really good thing to use. The problem with Golden Star is it's like 50 to 60K right now in flea market, so it's very expensive. I would probably recommend bringing food and drink, and then maybe using something like Vaseline if you want to use something similar, which we're going to talk about next. Vaseline looks very similar as well. The use time is a little bit less. It's going to be 6 seconds to use it. It's going to take away only -2 energy and -2 hydration, and it's still going to give you the 8.5 minutes of no pain. You still get 10 uses out of it, and you can pick these up for like 20,000 rubles, which is a really good deal for what it offers you. Now, the best thing about Vaseline, like why you would run Vaseline over painkillers or why you would run it over anything else, is because -2 on both is really big. Like in comparison to -10 on the ibuprofen or -7 on the painkillers, this is a must-have in your gamma once you can afford to run this. Lastly, guys, we're going to talk about surgery. Surgery is you're going to go into the game and you're going to be like, dude, I have like a blacked out limb, so it's going to show it blacked out right here. It's going to show 0 out of 65. You are going to need to do surgery on that leg or arm, or you're not going to be able to use it. You cannot heal something that is blacked out. So when these things are blacked out, the only two options you have right now in the game are CMS or Serve 12, which is a survival surgical kit. So the CMS is going to be a 2-slot item. Now this is important because most of the time you're going to run your CMS and your Serve 12 in your gamma. I have a Serve 12, I keep it at the bottom. Now, if you don't have a gamma and you have an alpha or beta or epsilon, you're going to have less spaces, meaning that in the very beginning, you're not going to be able to run a Serve 12 in here, and you don't want to keep a Serve 12 in your backpack because they're expensive and you just don't want to lose it. So you're going to end up keeping probably a CMS in there. Now, the problem with CMS in comparison to the Serve 12 kit is the amount of health that the CMS takes for restoring your limb. So each of these items to restore your limbs is going to take a certain amount of HP from the max health. So if, for instance, I heal this with the CMS, your left arm at 60 max health, you're going to get 45 to 60% of that max health back. So that's not very good. 45% is a terrible return on getting that limb back. This is going to give you 80 to 90%, the Serve 12. Also, even though it only takes up one more slot, you get 10 more uses. So you get 3 times the amount of uses with the Serve 12 than you do with the CMS. The other thing is that the Serve 12 can remove a fracture and the CMS cannot remove a fracture. So it's kind of, in my opinion, pointless to run the CMS at times, only because if you want to remove a fracture, if it happens, you still have to run a CMS in a 2-slot and then a splint in a single slot, which means you're going to be still taking up 3 slots. If you're going to be taking up 3 slots, run a Serve 12. But if you need the room for something else and you're just running a CMS and you'll deal with the fracture later, or you have the splint in your pocket, it's different because then you can take up 2 slots, you can put something else you need in your gamma, and then you can run the splint in your pocket. That's totally up to you, but those are the main differences, and the price differences really aren't that much either. I think you can get the CMS right now for like 18,000, and I actually just got the Serve 12, multiple of them I bought for 20 and 24, but most of the time they're about 30 to 35. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I changed hats. You guys will see where I changed it. But anyways, I wanted to wear this hat, so now I'm wearing this hat. It might look weird, but whatever. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you guys found any value in this video, make sure you smash the like button. It goes a long way for the channel. And if you guys want to see more Tarkov content, more videos like this, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. You guys could hit the little bell if you want to be notified when more videos go live. If you don't want to and you want to watch them at your own leisure, you don't have to hit the bell. Don't worry, I won't force you. Also, at some point, guys, I would love to see you guys in the live stream. I think we'll have a lot of fun Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. I'll see you there. I hope you guys are very blessed. I hope you have an amazing day or night, depending on where you're at in the world. I hope your raids are plentiful, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace. Ah, fresh beef tuna. That looks like it had mold on it. Hold up. Hold up, dude. Do you guys see that right now? What is that, blue cheese crumbles on my beef?